My name is Elias Rowan, and I'm 31 years old. Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house has always been a fragile balancing act. One wrong comment, one raised eyebrow, one misinterpreted tone, away from collapsing into something unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. But that evening, even before the first fork scraped a plate, I could already sense the fracture forming. The air felt charged in a way that made the back of my neck tighten like a storm hovering just outside the windows. The table was set the way my mother always insisted, polished silverware candles burning low cranberry sauce, sitting in the same cut glass dish she claimed was a wedding gift. My father sliced the turkey with slow, deliberate movements, his brows drawing together whenever he glanced toward my older brother, Derek Rowan, who had been unusually theatrical all evening. The kind of theatrical that comes from waiting to detonate a secret. I saw it in the way Derek drummed his fingers against the table, in the smug little curl tugging at the corner of his mouth, in the restless glances he kept flicking toward his phone. He wanted attention. He wanted a moment. And he was building toward it like a performer waiting for his cue. Across from me, my sister Rachel tried to maintain conversation with her husband, but her eyes kept darting nervously between me and Derek. She sensed it too. Something was off. Something was coming. So, little brother Derek finally said, setting his fork down with an exaggerated flourish. His tone alone was enough to make my jaw tense. I think I finally figured out what you've been hiding. I didn't look up immediately. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing my reaction or the flicker of unease that threatened to surface. Instead, I cut into my turkey and let the silence thicken. "Is that so?" I said quietly. "Oh, it absolutely is," Derek continued, voice rising just enough to draw everyone else's attention. "I've been keeping an eye on you for the past 2 years, Elias. You disappear at random, dodge questions, avoid family events, never let anyone know where you live or what you do. I decided enough was enough." My hand tightened slightly around the fork. I kept my expression calm, but inside a cold ripple slid down my spine. "Derek," I muttered, "what did you do?" "What I should have done a long time ago." He leaned back, pulling out his phone like it was Exhibit A in some grand case. "I followed you home last month." The table froze. My mother's hand rose instinctively to her chest. My father's knife hovered midair. "And today," Derek said proudly, "while you were driving here, I paid your place a little visit." Rachel's fork clattered against her plate. "You what?" she whispered. "You broke into my apartment," I said, not a question, but a quiet statement that sucked the warmth from the room. Derek laughed. Actually laughed. "Your door wasn't exactly Fort Knox. Took me 2 minutes to pick the lock." My mother gasped. My father's face hardened, but he didn't speak. "And you know what I found?" Derek continued swiping through photos. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No secret documents, no drug stash, no shady equipment. Just boring papers, a laptop I couldn't crack, and a bunch of locked drawers I opened anyway." He turned the phone toward the table. A photo filled the screen. My apartment completely ransacked. Drawers yanked open, papers scattered, furniture moved. Every muscle in my shoulders tightened, but my face remained neutral. I had trained myself to do that, absorb the blow without showing it. "You broke into my home," I repeated, quieter now. Derek's grin widened. "I figured it was time someone got answers. You've been playing mysterious long enough." Rachel looked horrified. "Derek, you actually broke into his house. He's been lying to all of us." Derek snapped, suddenly defensive. "He sneaks around like a criminal. What was I supposed to think?" My father cleared his throat, something conflicted flickering in his eyes. "Son, Elias, your brother isn't wrong about you being secretive." I felt something inside me crack, not loudly, not visibly, but enough to sting, enough to remind me why distance had always felt safer. I stood slowly, pulled out my phone. "Excuse me," I said, voice steady. "I need to make a call." "Oh, here we go," Derek scoffed. "Another secret phone call. Bet you need to step outside so we can't hear. God forbid the family learns anything about your precious life." I ignored him. I walked into the living room, each step measured. I dialed the number. I prayed I'd never have to call at a family gathering. The line rang twice. Deputy Marshal Chen, a familiar voice, answered. "It's Elias Rowan," I said softly, code Phoenix. "We have a critical security breach at my safe house location. Subject's brother conducted unauthorized entry approximately 3 hours ago. Multiple photographs. Potential exposure unknown." The temperature in the room behind me seemed to plummet. Derek's laughter fell silent. Chen's tone sharpened instantly. "Elias, are you in a secure location right now?" "Negative. I'm at my family residence. 6 individuals present." Do not move. Do not leave that location. A team is en route. Give me the address. I recited it. My voice was calm, but my pulse hammered in my throat. Team ETA, 12 minutes. Secure everyone. No one leaves the residence. Elias, this is bad. You know what this means. I know. I ended the call. When I turned around, the living room felt like a stage plunged into silence. 6 faces stared at me. Confusion, fear, horror, all woven together. Derek's smirk had vanished. No one leaves, I said, my voice carrying an unshakable finality as I walked back to my seat. U.S. Marshals are on their way. My mother's lips trembled. Elias, what is going on? I exhaled, slowly steeling myself. What's going on, I said, is that Derek just committed multiple federal crimes. Breaking into a federal safe house, photographing classified materials, potentially compromising the location of a protected witness. Derek's face drained of color. Wait, witness protection. Elias, what are you talking about? I'm not who you think I am, I said softly. I haven't been for 2 years. The room spun with shock. I testified against the Castellano crime family. They put $1 million bounty on my head. I was relocated under a new identity. That mysterious home office you broke into, I paused. It was a federal safe house. My mother covered her mouth, tears spilling. Rachel whispered, "Oh my God." And then a rumble outside, 3 black SUVs, doors slamming, boots hitting pavement. "They're here," I murmured. The knock on the door was sharp and unmistakably official, nothing like a visitor, everything like a verdict. The first marshal through the door moved with the controlled precision of someone who'd spent a lifetime stepping into volatile rooms. His expression was unreadable, but his presence alone changed the air, made it colder, heavier, more real. Behind him, 4 more marshals flowed in like an unspoken warning. U.S. Marshals Service Deputy Marshal Chen announced, his voice steady but edged with authority. Everyone remain seated with your hands visible. My family froze. My father's fork slipped from his fingers and clattered onto his plate. My mother looked from Chen to me, her breath trembling. Rachel clutched her husband's arm so tightly her fingers turned colorless. And Derek stared like he'd just woken up in a nightmare he wrote for himself. Chen moved toward the dining table with calm, lethal focus, his eyes sweeping over every face. "Which one of you is Derek Rowan?" he asked. Derek raised his hand weakly like a kid caught cheating on a test. "That's me." Chen didn't waste time. "Mr. Rowan, I need your phone. Now." Derek handed it over, hands visibly shaking. Chen began scrolling through the images. With each swipe, his jaw tightened further. "You took 43 photographs," Chen said flatly, "of a federal safe house." My mother gasped softly. Chen continued. "And you posted 6 of them to your Facebook account with the caption, 'Finally figured out what my secretive brother has been hiding.' Those posts have been shared 17 times. My father's face drained of color. Rachel whispered, "Derek, what did you do?" Chen's gaze snapped to her. "Ma'am, this situation is far more serious than I believe any of you realize." Derek stammered, I didn't know anything was federal. I didn't know about witness protection. I thought Elias was just hiding. I don't know, something shady." Chen's voice dropped into something colder. "Ignorance does not negate a felony. And you didn't just take photos, you distributed them publicly." One of the marshals approached Chen and spoke quietly into his ear. Whatever he said made Chen's expression darken even further. Chen turned back to the table. "Your social media posts," he said slowly, "have already been shared on 3 true crime forums. One user identified the apartment complex based on visible architectural markers. That information is spreading." My heart tightened. I'd always known this day could come, but I never thought it would be delivered by my own brother's hands. My father leaned forward, voice cracking. "Please, Marshal Chen, what does this mean for my son?" "Which son?" The question cut like glass. My father flinched. Chen set the phone down. "Mr. Rowan, your actions constitute multiple federal crimes, breaking and entering into a protected residence, tampering with federal property, and disseminating sensitive information that compromises a witness under protection." Derek shook his head desperately. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Chen's tone sharpened. "But you chose to break into a locked apartment. You chose to open drawers and cabinets. You chose to photograph everything, and you chose to post those photographs publicly. You made decisions. Now we deal with the consequences." My mother burst into tears. Please, he didn't mean to put anyone in danger. He's just impulsive." "Federal law doesn't care about impulsive," Chen said, without a hint of cruelty, just firm reality. Rachel turned on Derek, fury and fear warring in her expression. Did you tell anyone else, Derek? Look at me. Did you tell anyone? Derek's lips trembled. I might have mentioned it to a few people. Rachel slammed her palm on the table. Derek? Hu Chen demanded. My girlfriend Sarah, Derek whispered. And Jake and Chris at the bar last week. I shut my eyes. A sick heaviness settled in my chest. Did you give them any details? Chen asked. No, I just said I figured out where Elias had been living. I didn't give them the address. Doesn't matter, Chen replied sharply. Even the suggestion that you located a relocated brother narrows the trail. You've provided breadcrumbs. And the Castellano organization is exceptionally good at following breadcrumbs. Silence. Even the house itself felt like it was holding its breath. Rachel suddenly turned to me, voice trembling. Elias, what happens now? I swallowed hard. Derek is going to be arrested, I said quietly, and I have to be immediately relocated. My identity here is burned. My mother's sob broke through the room like something fragile shattering. No, 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 no. Elias, we just got used to having you near again. Please. I couldn't meet her eyes. A marshal stepped forward and addressed my family. All electronic devices, phones, laptops, tablets, need to be collected for forensic examination. Tom fumbled his phone into the marshal's hand. What about us? Rachel asked softly. Are we safe? Chen looked at her with a mix of professionalism and genuine concern. It depends, he said. If the Castellano family identifies Elias's former living location, they may look for connections. Anyone tied to him, family friends, could become leverage. My father's face went ashen. Leverage, meaning what? Chen hesitated, which said everything. Then he spoke plainly. Hostage, bait, pressure, revenge. My mother began sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Mrs. Rowan Chen said gently, I'm not saying it will happen, but the possibility is real. The organization your son testified against is not just dangerous, they are determined. We take no risks. Another marshal approached Derek. Derek Rowan, he said, you are under arrest for federal violations, including breaking and entering of federal property, tampering with witness protection security measures, and reckless endangerment of a protected witness. Derek's voice cracked. Elias, please do something. I looked at him. For the first time in years, I didn't see my brother. I saw the wreckage of his choices. I can't fix this for you, I said quietly. Not this time. Handcuffs clicked around Derek's wrists. My mother screamed, please don't take my son. Chen nodded to two marshals who gently but firmly held her back as Derek was lifted from his chair. Mom, Derek cried. Mom, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. His voice choked off as he was led toward the door, panic overtaking him. I didn't know. He disappeared out the front door, consumed by flashing lights and steel authority. The silence he left behind was suffocating. Chen turned to me. Elias, it's time. My father looked at me with devastation. I had no words to answer. My mother collapsed to her knees. Rachel covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaking down her face. I felt something inside me fracture quietly, completely. But survival had never cared about feelings. We need to move, Chen said firmly. I took one last look at the family I had already lost long before this night. I'm sorry, I whispered. And then I followed the marshals out into the cold November air. The night air hit me with a sharp winter-cold bite as I stepped outside, the kind that stings your throat when you breathe too quickly. The marshals' SUVs idled in the driveway, their engines rumbling like a low warning. Red and white lights pulsed against the house, painting long, trembling shadows across my parents' yard. Inside, behind me, I heard my mother sobbing uncontrollably. My father murmured something to her, something soft, something helpless, but his voice sounded thinned out, stretched between grief and shock. A marshal gently took my arm and guided me toward the vehicles, but before we crossed the threshold of the front steps, Chen turned and spoke. Elias, wait. His tone wasn't an order. It was a small pocket of permission, an acknowledgement that some moments could not be bulldozed by procedure. My family was gathered in the doorway, shaken, broken, lost. My mother tried to stand, but nearly crumpled again. My father caught her by the shoulders, holding her upright with a trembling strength. Rachel was gripping the doorframe with one hand, her other hand pressed tightly to her mouth as if she were trying to physically hold her heart in place. I stepped closer. My mother reached for me, but a marshal gently intercepted her, stopping her at arm's length. Please, she begged. Please let me hug my son. The marshal looked at Chen, silently asking. Chen hesitated, protocol, battling with compassion. Then he gave the faintest nod. My mother's hands were on my face almost instantly, her tears streaking down her cheeks as if they'd never stop. Oh, Elias, my baby, my sweet boy. Her voice shook. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you let us help you? Why did you carry this alone? Her touch made something old ache inside me, something I'd buried the day I left my entire life behind. I couldn't tell you, I whispered. You would have been in danger. We're in danger now, she cried, and we didn't even get the chance to know why. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. I thought keeping distance was protecting you. Maybe I was wrong. My father stepped forward, eyes shining with a grief I'd never seen on him, not even at funerals, not even during the worst fights. Son, he said, voice strained, I spent 2 years thinking you were shutting us out because you didn't care anymore. I would have taken cold silence over the truth you were carrying alone. He put a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, he whispered, for doubting you, for letting Derek push this far, for all of it. My throat tightened painfully. This was the hardest part, goodbyes carved out of urgency, forced by danger, shaped by circumstances none of us chose. Rachel stepped forward next. She looked like she'd been hit by a tidal wave, eyes red, breath, unsteady, trembling from head to toe. She didn't speak at first. She just wrapped her arms around me and held on like she was trying to memorize the shape of me. Please, she whispered against my shoulder, please stay safe. Please don't disappear forever. Promise you'll try to come back when it's safe. Her voice cracked on the last word. I rested my forehead against hers. I'll try, I said, aware of how fragile that promise really was. I swear I'll try. And Derek, she asked, pulling back just enough to look at me. What's going to happen to him? I exhaled slowly. His actions have consequences, I said gently, but I don't want him to rot in prison. I'll tell the marshals he didn't know what he was doing. It might not change much, but I'll do what I can. Rachel nodded, tears spilling as she pulled away. My father's hand lingered on my shoulder another second before letting go. My mother pressed her forehead against my chest one last time before a marshal gently stepped between us. I'm sorry, he said quietly. We have to move him now. My mother sobbed as I stepped back. Chen approached, placing a hand on her arm. Mrs. Rowan, he said gently, we'll keep your son as safe as humanly possible, but right now we have to go. No, she whispered. Please, not yet. But it was already time. I turned, forcing myself to walk toward the waiting SUV, each step feeling like it carved deeper into something I wasn't ready to lose. Halfway there, I heard the soft crunch of hurried footsteps behind me. It was Rachel. She grabbed my arm, gripping it fiercely. Wait, Elias, just tell me one thing. I turned toward her. She swallowed hard. Were you ever planning to tell us, eventually, when it was safe? The question struck something raw inside me, something vulnerable, something guilty. Yes, I said. One day. When the threat was gone. When my existence didn't put you at risk. Then promise me something else, Rachel whispered. Promise me you won't let this destroy who you are. Promise me you won't lose yourself in whatever new life they give you. A long pause. A cold breeze carried the faint smell of dinner, still sitting untouched inside the house. I'll try, I whispered. I can't promise more than that. She nodded, tears dribbling down her chin as she stepped back, arms wrapped around herself, as if holding together all the splintering pieces. Chen gave me a small, solemn nod and opened the SUV door. I climbed inside. Through the window, I watched as my mother collapsed against my father, her shoulders shaking. Rachel leaned against the doorframe, her face twisted in anguish. Tom stood behind her, stunned and silent. And Derek, somewhere miles away, already was being processed into the federal system. A future he never imagined. A future he created. The SUV pulled away from the house. My home disappeared behind trees and darkness. Chen sat beside me, opening a tablet already filled with preliminary reports. All right, Elias, he said quietly. We need to begin. What happens now, I asked, though. Part of me already knew. Chen turned to face me, eyes solemn. We rebuild everything, he said. Your safe house is compromised. Your identity is compromised. Your routines, contacts, locations burned. So Elias Rowan is gone too. Eventually, yes, Chen replied. Tonight we start designing a new life, new city, new background, new habits, new name. I leaned my head back against the seat, letting the reality sink in. I had already lost one life 2 years ago. Now I was losing the second one. Derek hadn't just broken into my home. He'd broken the fragile bridge I'd tried to build back to my family. Chen's voice softened just slightly. This is the worst-case scenario, he said. But you survived it. You're still alive, Elias. That still matters. Alive. The word felt heavier than I expected. Alive, but becoming a ghost again. The SUV drove deeper into the night toward a secure facility where my world would be dismantled and rebuilt from nothing. Thanksgiving dinner would never be finished. My family might never see me again. And tomorrow I would wake up a stranger to everyone, including myself. The secure facility sat at the end of a winding private road, invisible from the highway and tucked behind dense pines that swallowed the headlights whole. When the SUV finally stopped, it felt like the world itself had gone still. No distant traffic, no porch lights, no human sound except the low hum of the engine cooling. A high-security gate slid open with mechanical precision. Cameras swiveled silently to track our movement. Armed personnel watched from glassed-in guard posts with expressionless discipline. This wasn't a temporary shelter. This was the liminal space between who I had been and whoever I was about to become. As I stepped out of the vehicle, the cold struck harder than before. It bit at my skin, but it couldn't reach the numbness, settling deeper inside my chest. Chen walked beside me, his posture firm, but his pace deliberately steady, as if he understood that rushing would only make this transition feel more violent than it already was. Inside, the facility smelled faintly of industrial cleaner and recycled air. The walls were sterile white, the floors gleaming with blue-gray epoxy. Everything echoed the faintest step, the quietest shift of breath. It felt like walking into a life that hadn't yet chosen its owner. A marshal led us down a hallway to a narrow briefing room. It held a single table, 2 chairs, and a metal cabinet full of sealed envelopes, blank documents, and identity packets waiting to be assigned. Chen closed the door behind us and set a tablet on the table. "You'll be here for the next several days," he said. "Possibly weeks. Depends on risk assessment and how quickly we can set up your new identity." "New city, new name," I murmured. "Knew everything," Chen confirmed. He sat, his hands folded on the table expression. Steady but weighted by something deeper experience, maybe. Or empathy, he tried not to let show. "Elias," he said, "I know you're exhausted. I know this feels like losing a limb. But we have to go through the sequence tonight while everything is still fresh." I lowered myself into the chair opposite him. "What do you need from me?" I asked. Chen slid the tablet toward me. On the screen, an empty form pulsed like a blank slate. "Everything Derek saw," he said. "Everything he photographed. Everything he moved. Every lock he bypassed. Every document he could have glanced at even for a second." I inhaled slowly. Recounting it felt like reopening a wound, but I did it anyway, methodically, mechanically, step by step. Chen typed as I spoke, his expression sharpening with each detail. When I finished, he sat back, pinching the bridge of his nose. "It's worse than I hoped," he admitted, "but not as bad as it could have been. Nothing that exposes your testimony records was in plain sight, and he didn't know how to interpret half of what he saw. So there's a chance the Castellanos won't be able to use the photos." "There's a chance," Chen said carefully, "but we must assume they've already seen them. That's the only way to operate safely." I nodded, absorbing the weight of that. It was one thing to know someone wanted you dead. Another to know your own brother might have sent them a blueprint. Chen leaned forward slightly. "I need you to understand something real, Elias. You're alive because you took the program seriously, because you followed protocol, because you made sacrifices most people can't even imagine." He paused. "But tonight proves what we've always known." I met his eyes. "Family is your weakest point," he said quietly. "Not because they betrayed you intentionally, but because they didn't understand your world." He wasn't wrong. My family had always seen my secrecy as a wall between us, something I built out of stubbornness or pride. But secrecy had been the thing keeping them alive, and now the truth had detonated that fragile balance. Chen unlocked the metal cabinet and took out a sealed binder. He placed it gently on the table. "This is where we begin," he said. "A new name, a new history, background details, employment cover, skills profile, relocation radius." He pushed it toward me. "For the next 2 years, this identity will be your life." My throat tightened as I placed my hand on the binder. It was cold, heavy, final. "Can I ask something?" I said quietly. Chen nodded. "How many times can a person start over before there's nothing left of them?" His expression softened almost imperceptibly. "There's always something left," he said, "but it changes shape." I looked down at the binder again. I remembered my mother's hands on my face, my father's trembling voice, Rachel gripping my arm, begging me not to lose myself. The empty chair where Derek had been sitting just hours earlier. $1 million bounty, a burned identity, a family torn apart by curiosity and fear. Chen's voice brought me back. "You don't have to open it tonight," he said. "We can give you a few hours to rest." But I shook my head. "No," I murmured. "I'm already gone from my old life. I need to know who I'm becoming next." Chen nodded once, slow, respectful. I opened the binder. The first page stared back at me. Proposed new identity. Draft. Name. age, birthplace, background, yes. Blank lines waiting for a stranger, waiting for me. Chen rose to leave, but he paused at the door. Elias, he said quietly. I looked up. For what it's worth, you're one of the strongest witnesses I've ever handled. This isn't the end for you. It's just another beginning. I gave him a faint, tired smile. I'll take your word for it. He nodded once, then stepped out, closing the door behind him. The room fell silent. I stared at the blank identity form, pen in hand, wondering who I was supposed to become and whether any version of myself would ever feel whole again. In the quiet memories flickered through my mind, Thanksgiving dinner untouched on the table, Derek's face collapsing as they cuffed him, my mother reaching for me with shaking hands, Rachel whispering, "Promise me you won't lose yourself." And then I heard my own voice, calm, resigned, unsteady. I'll try. I pressed the pen to the page. A new name, a new life, another ghost to inhabit. This was survival. This was consequence. This was the price of truth. And somewhere out there, my family would wake up tomorrow knowing that Thanksgiving 2024 had split our lives into before and after. Before secrets, before consequences, before betrayal, and after the silence that follows when a life disappears to stay alive. I wrote the first letter of my new name. The rest would come. But the man who entered this facility tonight, the man called Elias Rowan, was already fading into memory. Tomorrow I would be someone else.